The first time when he asked me to take on the COO role, I was in my late 20s. I felt very green. I keep pushing back, counter-proposing, how about another job title? I will still get the job of a COO done, but I'll take a lesser title.
Why?
I didn't feel like I was ready. I felt like maybe someone in their 20s shouldn't be a COO. And then the next time he asked me to be a CEO, I was in my 30s, early 30s, and again, I didn't feel ready. I felt the title was too heavy, and he persuaded me, he convinced me, he said like, you need this title to empower you to make decisions. Any other titles wouldn't work. You need to take this title. And I'm glad that he told me that. This is also a learning that I bring with me, and I would really share with my friends and people around me that we have to sometimes embrace the ambiguity and go for it.
Hi, and thanks for tuning in to Atypical Asia, the podcast where we meet the rebels and the rule breakers reshaping the global narrative on Asia. My guest today is Shn Juay, worldwide CEO of Coffee Meets Bagel. Before taking on the role, she cut her teeth at homegrown dating app Paktor, scaling it across Asia and navigating the highs and lows of startup life, including a failed IPO on the New York Stock Exchange. Today, she's not just running a global dating app. She's reshaping how millions of people across Asia and the world think about love, marriage, and relationships. Welcome to the show, Shn. We have so much to talk about today. I really want to get into our conversation.
Thanks for having me here today.
So, what first drew you into the world of dating apps?
I have always been a marketing person by training. So I used to work for a fashion media startup focusing on female communities. And back then, the then CEO and founder of Paktor app, his name is Joseph Hua, he wanted to improve on the gender ratio within the Paktor app. So he approached me. It was very early days, before Tinder even hit the shores of Singapore. So I really liked that idea, and I knew I wanted to be part of this.
Yeah. What was most intriguing for you?
The technology. Yeah, actually, for Asia, in the beginning, there was a lot of stigmatization. People feel that if they put up their public dating profile, they appear as desperate. But for me, I was on the other camp. I felt, wow, this is so cool. I was very motivated to bring this to the masses, and I wanted to embark on the education campaign to get more singles adopting this technology, because I sincerely feel that this is a very efficient way for anyone to be matched with many other singles.
So how did the technology help to get over the stigmatization of looking desperate?
I would say the technology cannot help with overcoming the stigmatization. It was through marketing. We did a lot of media pitching. We worked with a lot of content creators. We try to normalize this behavior, that being on the dating app is normal. And I would say like it took us a while, but here we are today. You see, so many of the friends, the family members among us are using dating apps, and no one is judging anybody.
Yeah, it's totally true. Like in a lot of weddings I go to these days, and you ask the couple, how do you meet? They just openly say, or even in the video, the little montage.
Montage, they start featuring like the story of how they met, and they are showing their moments in the app.
Yeah, I love that. It's really moved the needle. I find your professional journey very fascinating as well. So you started in marketing, and then you became COO. And eventually CEO of Paktor. So tell me about your journey. What were some of the highlights and maybe some of the lowlights as well?
I started my career as the head of marketing with Paktor. And in that role, it gave me the opportunity to deal with a lot of external stakeholders. Because for Paktor back then, we were trying to expand into new markets. And with every market that we entered, I get to work with different cultures and figuring out what's the product market fit, how do I get top-line revenue growth for our business. So that was really a good skill set to pick up on. The second part of it was when I became the COO. That's when I looked at more internal. I had to understand the internal disciplines across different departments, how the different facades of the company come together. And in that role of a COO, I learned how to optimize our OPEX, the operational cost of running a business. So if you add A plus B, A is where you find top-line revenue growth, which is revenue, and then B is where you optimize your costs. If you put them together, this is where it's a very powerful engine to make a business profitable. So with these two skill sets in place, I was eventually promoted to be the CEO of Paktor Group. By then, Paktor Group had multiple dating apps in the portfolio. We also had launched offline matchmaking services. We also had date coaching services across 7 markets in Asia, with Korea and Taiwan being our largest. For the lows, I mean, in a startup, there will be many every day. But the greatest stumble would have to be our failed IPO. So back then, Paktor's parent company, so Paktor merged with 17 live streaming app, and that we had a parent company, M17. The parent company attempted to list on New York Stock Exchange. All the different departments actually came together to prepare KYC for 1 year. It was very grilling. We had colleagues who had to stay overnight in office. They cannot go home because there were so many deadlines to meet. And there was just this atmosphere of excitement. Everyone was excited to exercise their stock options when the company goes public. And even on the eve of the listing day, different officers, like from Korea to Taiwan, we had big celebration parties. Champagnes were popped and what's not. And then I was in New York then. We did ring the bell, but for many reasons, we didn't get to trade. It was very distressing. This is what I call crisis leadership, because, you know, the press were all writing about you, saying like, oh, this is a big failure. And seriously, there was no playbook to refer to tell you, oh, how do you navigate and bring your company out of these crises? I was very fortunate that I had solid leadership members with me. I was then the COO at Paktor. Together with our leadership team, of course, when we came back to Asia, we spent time navigating this by having really frank conversations. And in Asian context, just having one town hall will not cut it, because it's in their culture not to ask difficult questions in group setting. And their English are also not so great. Then they are very shy to express themselves. So what we did was, yes, we still did a group town hall, but we make efforts to really go down to every country to do market visits. And we really want to make sure we have one-on-one with whatever they want to ask. We are very open to share with them. And it was really about stabilizing the company, because you can imagine the morale overall was just very lousy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that story. I think we often celebrate successes, but we never talk about failure enough. But how did you personally process that moment while showing a brave front? I mean, I'm sure the setback was very personal as well, right? Like, did you question yourself? And then how did you pick yourself up after that?
When it happened, there were a lot of concerns coming in from friends who learned about it. A lot of random journalists who somehow got my number wanting to call me. I kind of switched off my phone completely, just want to have some silence to kind of process it with my other leadership members who were in New York with me. And while our phones were all off, we were drafting like what we want to communicate to our team. And I don't know whether you call it a blessing in disguise, because the following day from New York, I flew to LA to attend a dating conference where I was a speaker on stage.
Oh, wow.
And I was really prepared for people at the event to ask me, hey, I hear you have a failed IPO, what happened, right?
Yeah, so did they ask you that, and how was that like?
Well, some of them they did ask, and me preparing the comms of what I wanted to relate to my team, and all this preparation helps. You don't want to be caught off guard with questions like that.
So why was it a blessing in disguise, not being able to list?
The blessing in disguise was from me having to go through the first trial at a public speaking event where people had to throw me all the questions.
It was a trial by fire.
It was a trial by fire already. I went through that first trial. Then I flew back to Asia, where the communication was a lot more personal.
How do you mean that it's not a lot more personal?
Because at the trial by fire, they are all strangers whom I meet for the first time. I didn't have to indulge them with too much information. But with our internal team, we do owe them a good explanation as to what happened, what went wrong. They deserve to know. It was very emotional on our part, having to deliver this negative news to our teammates that the IPO didn't manage to happen.
I think and talk a lot about crisis communications as well. Yeah. I love that your first thought was how the colleagues take it rather than how the media and the public take it, when usually people think, oh, what is everyone else going to think of us? But actually, your staff and your employees are the most important.
I guess I would attribute that to us being in a startup mode where, you know, we operate on a very lean team. Everyone really plays a very big role. We are not like a few thousand, 5,000 kind of headcount company. It's just maybe 50, 100 of us in Paktor. And for me and my one level down, my direct head of departments reporting to me, we really have a good relationship. We watch each other's back. We carry everybody right to the finishing line of IPO back then.
How did you find this leadership style that you have?
I've always been like that. And if we can have the company running this way, work doesn't feel like work actually. And when we solve problems together and there are wins, we celebrate together. I really like that.
Yeah. I remember you said before that you were asked to take the COO and CEO role several times and you initially rejected it. So what was going through your mind then and what eventually convinced you to say yes?
I feel that although I was already in Paktor for a few years then, I was one of their pioneer employees. I can understand why my boss back then wanted to promote me into these roles. But the first time when he asked me to take on the COO role, I was in my late 20s. I felt very green. I didn't know what a COO was supposed to do. And I keep pushing back, counter-proposing, how about another job title? I will still get the job for COO done, but I'll take a lesser title.
Why?
I didn't feel like I was ready. I felt like maybe someone in their 20s shouldn't be a COO. And then the next time he asked me to be a CEO, I was in my 30s, early 30s. And again, I didn't feel ready. I felt the title was too heavy. And he persuaded me, he convinced me, he said like, you need this title to empower you to make decisions. Any other titles wouldn't work. You need to take this title. And I'm glad that he told me that. This is also a learning that I bring with me and I would really share with my friends and people around me that we have to sometimes embrace the ambiguity and go for it.
So what was your experience like building Paktor as a homegrown app and scaling it regionally? What was the most interesting market to expand to?
I feel that one of the more memorable markets would be Korea. It's a market that we failed twice and only succeeded on the third attempt. There were so many variables to control for. For instance, when we talk about the product market fit, right down to the color scheme, the original color scheme that Paktor had, they couldn't accept, the name they couldn't accept because Paktor, if you translate to Korean lingo, it's not something that can easily type out in Korean characters, the word Paktor. And it doesn't mean anything to them. So we had to change our look, our color scheme on the app. We changed our name.
What were you called in Korea?
Swipe.
Oh, okay. Good name.
Swipe.
And what was the colors? Why couldn't they accept
we changed
the
it to turquoise because they cannot accept dark color scheme. Paktor was dark, was black, many tones of grays. And then we changed it to turquoise. Can you imagine a contrast?
Wow,
they prefer light color. So what I learned was for Koreans, if their day-to-day most used app is KakaoTalk, which is yellow, and then right down to the navigation, where the drop-down is it on the left or on the right, where the menu bar is, you try not to challenge that UX, which the user experience which they're familiar with.
Because it's the incumbent communication platform
correct.
For them?
So it feels so intuitive for them that the menu bar is on this side and what's not. So when Paktor first went in, we were the complete opposite in terms of navigation. So people feel uncomfortable and they just churned. So anyway, we spent some time trying to fix the product, but the most challenging has to be hiring. So this was again back then in 2021, 3, 21, 4. Startups was basically unheard of in Korea. So all the job applicants, there's actually a great sense of pride being attached to say, I work at LG or Samsung, which is a very established and well-known, recognized MNC.
All the tables.
They put on suits to go to work and they hand out name cards. They're proud that, I work here. Compared to working in a startup where, we are a foreign company trying to enter Korea. There's no news about us in Korea at all. Firstly, they're skeptical, like who are you? And this service you want to provide is relatively unheard of in Korea. What do you mean by dating on the app? How does it work? So people were skeptical about the product. Even after many trials with recruiters, we managed to find candidates who were willing to try working with us. Language was another big problem. Because much as they learn English, they are just not at that level of fluency to communicate with cross-functional teams in product, in engineering.
So how did you overcome that?
We had a change of 2 country managers. But the third one, we hired a Korean American. So he worked out well in terms of language. And I was also more flexible and realistic by then. I knew that if I want to hire, say, for a team of 4 or 5, I can't have all of them being very fluent at a 9 out of 10 kind of fluency for English language. So my country manager, definitely was fluent in English. He went on to hire other Koreans who were competent at what they do, but they are just not so fluent in English. And what I did was I hired an in-house translator. So he will tag along for every single call, listening in and providing live translation, word for word, line by line. But of course, this was back then when there was no AI assistance.
Yeah, that's true.
Think about it. So we did it the manual way.
Wow.
There were no tools to help us for this 10 years ago.
Wow. Wow, but I love it. It's like a problem solver, right? Like you get the problem and then you just find this.
It's also about being relentless. We know that Korea was a good market for us. We didn't want to give up on it. We just keep trying.
But I love the hunger and the resilience and the relentlessness. And I love that it's a homegrown startup, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
big ambitions. So where did that hunger come from to, say, okay, it's not working, let's just iterate until we get it right?
Partly because I would say we were in a startup mode. We were always looking at countries that can give us the best returns. We are always measuring, say, for example, for every $1 I spend in acquiring a new user, how much money can that user give me back in terms of their app subscription in the app and the payments they make. So Korea was great for us in terms of us finding that the lifetime value of the user, the revenue that they can bring in, was actually profitable for us in terms of unit economics. Much more attractive than our neighboring markets where the ability to pay was lower. And also, I had to prioritize also. Not all markets are equal. Much as I would like to say, I want to go into every single market. But again, we are a startup. I don't have that kind of resources to have teams in every single market. I had to pick very carefully. Yeah.
Looking back, what's one thing from your startup years that still shapes the way you lead today?
Maybe two things that come to mind. On a personal front, there's always a lot of things going on. You find in a startup, you find everything burning everywhere. You have to attend to everything at the same time.
You're a firefighter.
And then at home, I'm also a mother to a few young ones.
How many children do you have?
I've got 3. So it's really coupled with all the flying for business trips and what's not. I really have to prioritize. So I like to use this term, ruthless prioritization. We really have to be very clear on what are important and what's neither moving. And we prioritize that as number one top work to attend to, and the rest can wait.
I love that, and I need that in my life, so thank you for that tip. I think as women, and especially as working women, female leaders, we tend to say yes to everything. We want to solve everybody's problem and make everyone's life better. And so we just take on and take on and take on, and there's no end to it.
So when you say taking on, right, you're referring to the physical side. Like after a while, you get burnout. But what people don't really talk about is also the emotional, cognitive load.
True.
Right? Maybe you're already in bed doing nothing. But then at the back of your head, you have this list of things that, I have not done this, I've not done that.
That's 100%.
We really have to be kinder to ourselves.
Yeah, by being ruthless in our prioritization.
Yes.
So how do you be ruthless, right? How do you say no to things that actually don't align with you?
So I have my fair share of rejecting people when they need help or they ask me for certain things. While I reject, I always make sure I reject kindly. I will explain to them why I can't do it now, and I'll counter propose another later deadline, or I'll recommend someone else whom I think can do the job.
So not so ruthless afterwards. Actually very kind prioritization.
No, so ruthless prioritization, but when dealing with people, I always make sure that I am kind, and this is also a behavior that I hope all daters can bring into their dating as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good reminder.
And also, just I mentioned 2 things, right? So first thing's on ruthless prioritization. The second thing is on having good teams, and having good teams start with us being good leader as well. So again, it's always in my mandate to be kind to my team members, because when they're happy at work, then work can thrive.
That's true. I think the hardest challenge usually I find is going from being a great individual contributor where you are in charge, you can control the quality of your work, to then managing people and being able to let go and delegate, right? And maybe accepting that the quality isn't going to be like always up to your standards, but you are grooming someone in that process.
And I like that you raised this, because in a startup, when you're in a team of 10 men versus the next 50 and then the next 100, the expectations for work keep changing. When in the first 10 men, you need a lot of generalists. You don't need so much in-depth technical knowledge, right? And you'll find that in the first 10 men kind of startup, everybody wears multiple hats. But then as you progress to the next 50 or next 100, you have bigger teams, and every team needs a proper team leader. And that's where the team leader actually needs to have that kind of technical knowledge or relevant work experience from some other place.
True, that deep specialization.
And what is sad is when people who are generalists, normally when they move into these roles, they struggle because they are generalists.
Yeah, so how do you manage that?
And because they are generalists, I try to give them experiences in other different departments, meaning I rotate them around so that they can see every aspect of the business, and then they can help out. These generalists are great being in the operational role to coordinate, to make sure things go smoothly, but they will not be the technical person for, say, product or engineering.
And you need these generalists to break the silos as well.
And also for culture building. so important because they have been there since day one. So I would like to say, even when a company has outgrown them, there's always a role for them in the company. We need this culture to stay relevant as a company.
Yeah. I really enjoy talking with you and getting your perspective on leadership, because I think that's so inspirational, because you're not just thinking how do you get the most out of the person in that time, in that role, but you're thinking about their next step and their, progress as well.
I encourage Singaporeans to branch out to other countries to work if they have this chance. This was also the same style I designed at Paktor. I had colleagues, maybe they were in the capacity of head of marketing for Vietnam or Thailand. I actually got them to work in Singapore. And then for my Singaporean colleagues, I got them to move to Taiwan office too. Because you really do need to get out of Singapore to be based there for a while, to really appreciate there's actually a contrast between how people communicate, how they work. And when you come back to Singapore, you feel like your career is so enriched. It's not just work, but you have picked up a lot of soft skills.
Yeah, and these cultural nuances.
As an employer, with all the jobs that we are hiring now, the job openings, I actually proactively look out for candidates who have varied experience. So varied experience meaning they have the breadth. So normally people talk about depth, like how good or how technical are you in certain skill. But I really don't think that's good enough. I look at breadth. So for instance, if you're in marketing, in what kind of industries have you done marketing work? Or like what countries have you traveled to? Where do you study? And what are the offices you have moved to? And all these matter because then you have that global perspective, that worldview, and it really helps our business to grow. End of the day, for us, be it Paktor or CMB right now, our app is designed for global citizens, right? So when I hire, I would say one of the things I'm looking out for is actually this kind of varied experience.
So tell me about your progress then from Paktor to Coffee Meets Bagel.
Sure. So I left Paktor when Paktor exited. And I felt like, okay, I've been dating for a while now. I wanted to explore and try out other industries. There was an opening in a gaming studio and I went for it. I figured with all things being equal, I was in mobile dating space. This is a mobile gaming company. So the constant here is mobile, right? So, okay, it shouldn't be too difficult, I'll cross over. So I did enjoy my time in mobile gaming because from mobile gaming, it was a great exposure. I learned a lot of things from scratch, like how games are designed and how do you do marketing. The platforms, the channels are completely different. But my heart really still belongs with dating. It's different because in gaming, you're looking at user stickiness, meaning you want users to come back as often as possible.
The addiction.
To spend more time in the app. This is what you are designing for, right? But in the dating app, it's the complete opposite. You want them to find their partner and leave and
true.
have their happily ever
That's
after.
a strange business model. You actually don't want your customers to stick around.
And I really have these intense emotions, like positive emotions, when people write in to us telling us, hey, I'm going to propose tomorrow. We are getting married. This is a picture of a firstborn. It literally sends chills down my body. Like, oh my God, I've actually enabled 2 strangers to meet on our platform, and that has blossomed into something real.
I love that they actually tell you also.
Yeah, sometimes they send us wedding invites. And in Asian culture, they send you all the ang ku kuehs when their baby turn 1 month old or have their 100-day celebration. We always get this in the office.
That must be so motivating.
It is. It is. I don't think many people can say that their job actually enable them to achieve this. But in dating, we can. And that is what keeps me going.
I think you've brought up so many fascinating aspects of dating, and I've learned so much from you, and I hope our listeners have as well. So yeah, thank you for being on our show. Really appreciate having you here.
Thank you, Debbie, for having me.
That was Shn Juay on the future of love, leadership, and human connection in Asia. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to hit subscribe, and I would love to hear from you in the comments. Till our next conversation, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next episode.